Welcome to Shovick Sports Shit Podcast. We're just two brothers who just talk sports and give our opinions on today's topics. This is for entertainment purposes only, and these are strictly our opinions and views. So sit back for the next hour and enjoy our sports takes. All right, welcome back. Another episode of Shovick Sports Shit. It's kind of starting to heat up already in the football world. There are a lot of rumors. It's the rumor season, right? So we're not going to feed into the rumors. We will decide if they are rumors and or maybe have some heat to it. I know there was a report yesterday saying Gronk wanted to come back. The Broncos were interested in that. That was shot down multiple times. And Gronk himself said today that he has no desire to quit his lifestyle to come back and play football. So, again, that's the fun part of the season. I want to sort of dive into, so we did the coaching carousel a few weeks ago, almost spot on with some of those. We obviously didn't see Pete Carroll coming out of nowhere essentially for that, but I think for the most part we did pretty good with what we thought. I didn't think Kellen Moore would end up in New Orleans. They made that official obviously after the Super Bowl. So now we're going to kind of do QB carousel with maybe teams that are, looking to go rookie quarterback and or veteran quarterback, and maybe kind of see there's some big names out there, honestly. Whether it's Sam Darnold, Matt Stafford, who is able to look for trade partners, Aaron Rodgers. I think the Saints said today that they were going to keep Derek Carr to start the season, but we've heard it before. So we'll kind of, I had the list of teams right here in front of me. Do you have anything to add before we start this fun game of QB carousel?
Yeah, I think one that I'm curious about, and I didn't hear you say their name, or say his name, but I'm sure it's still one that's out there. But I'm actually most curious on the Kirk Cousins one. That's a rough situation. I don't know if he wants to be a backup, but I don't really know if anyone's going to take him in that contract off of the Falcons' hands. So I think that's really the only one that's like, you really don't know what's going to happen, because in previous years he would have just stayed on the team, right? Like, we can't afford to trade you, we can't afford to cut you, but it's happening more lately. So that's the one I'm going to have my eyes on the most.
Yeah, and he's in a situation and kind of a thing of similar to what Russell Wilson was last year. So obviously Denver paid $38 million, and Russ signed a $1 million contract with Pittsburgh. That's the same essentially what Kirk Cousins can do, right? So they cut him. They're still on the hook to cover basically his whole salary for the year based on what he signs with. So if I'm him, fuck you. I mean, obviously it was a year, but a 1 year kind of like not a fun time. Like, we get it, he was hurt, but there's going to be a suitor out there, and they're only going to be like, hey, $1 million, and he's like, done, because I'm still going to get that $40 million from the Falcons either way. So good on him. I still think he has some stuff left in the tank. Obviously, the injury didn't help, and I don't think that style of offense.
No, he needs to go shotgun, spread. Not under center, not doing naked boots, and
their outside zone game was not for him. So
no,
we'll keep him in mind. So I'm going down the list right here. Let's start with the Giants. Dayball and kind of the GM, they're kind of putting, I mean, this is it, right? Like, this has to be their best offseason as far as you have to get this right, and or you're going to be part of that coaching cycle next year, right? I think they're in love with Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if I'm really risking the third overall pick on him to save my job, right? So, like, what are your thoughts with where the Giants are?
I think it's awesome that we started with that, though, and we didn't have a conversation or anything leading up to this, but right before we hopped on, I did see a meme about their quarterback room. It said the Giants right now have 0 quarterbacks under contract, and the first Giants fan said, and ironically, it's the best quarterback room they've had in years. And so it just kind of made me laugh a little bit. But so obviously they have to get a quarterback somewhere. And we'll touch it when we get to, college and kind of do draft rankings. But there's no quarterbacks in this draft that I'm going to put my job on the line for. There's just not that one, right? Like, there might be some second or third rounders that might be a steal that you could like build up a little bit. But if I'm Dayball in that front office, there's no one in the draft that I'm confident with, right? Not to save my job.
Yeah,
There could be internal
You're getting 1 year. I mean,
well, and there could be internal conversations, right? So let's just say Dayball in the front office, like, hey, say we draft Cam Ward, Shooter Sanders, whoever we like, right? If we come out this year and it looks like we got the quarterback and it looks like we nailed that position, is the win-loss record going to matter, right? Because first step, you have to look like you have a quarterback, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, you want to win a lot, but for the Giants, if they come out, draft a rookie, and especially like the back half of his rookie year, he comes out and plays well, still doesn't turn in a lot of wins, is that enough to save your job? So it really depends on the internal discussions, how long of a leash they've been given. If it is truly a 1 year save your job, there's no way they're drafting one. They would go get one of the veterans out there, use that draft pick to make the roster that much better. Hell, they might even trade down to get more capital because this draft is loaded. You're going to be getting quality ass people 3rd, 4th, 5th round, and it's not just diamond in the rough. Like, they're out there.
Yeah, it's a draft that don't worry, like, put the quarterbacks aside, right? Put the quarterbacks aside. This is a deep draft at all other positions. You have good running backs, first round quality running backs that are probably going to be going in the 4th or 5th round, just based on need. You're going to have edge rushers who are first round talent that are going to be going in the 4th or 5th round, just based on where people are picking. So again, these 6, 7 teams that we're getting ready to list, they're going to be looking. There's not 7 draft worthy quarterbacks, and they're draft worthy, but they're not. You're not looking for
franchise.
Yeah. And a lot of these teams, I mean, maybe not all of them, but a good chunk of them, some of these coaches are going to be coaching for, this is it. Like, you had your run, you fucked up, you went Daniel Jones over Saquon. We saw how that played out. I do think, and they were really close to signing Russell Wilson last year. I know that. I would put Russ here. I think Dayball, I would be okay, and I think Dayball would be comfortable with that too. I don't know about the antics and all that, but as far as like a guy who can get your skill position, you have good receivers. You have good, you get Russ in there. Maybe then you can go 2nd or 3rd round quarterback to maybe learn from, and you can use that 1st round pick on a defensive player, your 2nd round pick on figuring out your running back situation too. Tyron Tracy was good. You need offensive line, that's for sure. But I think Russ also helps with that part. So I like Russell Wilson with the Giants. That's kind of where my bold prediction, I suppose, would with him. I think he would go there. And just because, and we'll get to this team here shortly, but a couple weeks ago, I would have probably told you it was the Raiders, but I've kind of had to change of tone after some stuff we were reading today. So I'm going to go Russ with the Giants. And is there a veteran, or are you going to lean like rookie quarterback?
There's just not any veterans that I think will really want to go there.
Yeah, because a lot of these quarterbacks are in the end of theirs too. Like,
yeah, and I don't think Stafford's actually going to get traded. This is a very common maneuver by the Rams. That's how they value their own free agents or upcoming free agents. Like, hey, go find your value, come back, and we'll see if we can find common ground. Because the Rams aren't going to trade Stafford with absolutely nothing in place. Like, that's not, even for the Rams, who do a lot of crazy shit with draft picks and their roster, they're not a team that's just going to trade a quarterback and be like, oh, fuck it, we'll figure it out. Especially at the quarterback position, right? They might do that with a linebacker, a corner. Like, you're not doing that with a quarterback unless they finesse I like Stafford with Dayball the most. I think that pairing, and he's tough as nails. He would be good for just that city, the team, the locker room, everything. But I think the only way that Stafford ends up on the Giants is if somehow the Rams fleece them for the number 3 pick. I don't think the Giants are that terribly ran to where that would happen.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, but if you're the Rams, you couldn't say yes quick enough if they offered you the third.
hey, we saw the Luka trade, so like everything's on the table now. So
Yeah.
with that being said, though, I don't. I think out of the veterans, I do think Russ makes the most sense. But I think they're going to be stuck needing a quarterback. And if I have to put a name on it, I don't know how high teams are on. Again, this is just who I would take out of the quarterbacks if I was sitting where they were. If you're not able to go get that veteran you want, I think best case scenario, just if you're saving your job, they should draft Jackson Dart. Mobile enough to help run for his life behind that offensive line. But you put up 500 yards a week against SEC defenses, like you at least know how to throw a football. Again, the NFL is still different, but that would be my favorite one to pick if they can't get a veteran.
Yeah, I think this probably next month is huge for Jackson Dart and what he does. I haven't seen anything if he's going to do any throwing or anything at the combine, but I know he'll have a pro day. And I think he's going to shoot up the boards. I think he's going to have a really good pro day, and I think he's going to have a really good offseason to where he's going to, I think, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the quarterbacks, but I think we're both leaning him as our dark horse candidate as far as being a first round kind of sneak into the first round type of guy.
That like Bo Nix one, right?
Yeah.
Like the one down the list that nobody's really thinking about, but is probably like the most pro ready.
Yeah. And it's going to end up being a team that probably, it could end up being, it's going to be one of those teams that they don't really need a quarterback maybe this year, but they stash him now. Right?
Like, an ideal fit would be Seattle, right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Let him finish out Geno's contract.
Yeah, I would even put the Rams on there too. Like, even if maybe they were to move on from Stafford, maybe put Jackson Dart in with McVay, get him kind of moving a little bit. I think he's a smart enough quarterback. And once we see the combine, we see how interviews go, and we start getting more than, a handful of mock drafts, and we can kind of start putting our own kind of thoughts together on those. Moving on to the next team, it is the Rams. I think they got to keep Stafford, honestly, at the end of the day. But I get it. That's a lot of money for a team that's, McVay, I think, is probably one of the better coaches in the NFL, where I don't think he necessarily needs Stafford as much as Stafford needs him. I think you can really plug most quarterbacks in. I think it's kind of similar with what Sam Darnold just did with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. Some of these guys are just really fucking good coaches, and you're seeing some of those. End of the day, it should be Stafford. I think this one says Aaron Rodgers is kind of a pick name to watch for. If I'm McVay, is Aaron Rodgers going to come to it for cheap? Maybe that's the reason why you're okay with it. He's from California. I get it. But at the end of the day, I think Stafford needs to just stay there and do that, which doesn't make sense because I'm going to pick Stafford for somewhere else. But in the long run, this is a smart move to just keep Stafford.
Yeah, I think Rodgers. I'm picking Rodgers for somewhere else. I also don't think him and McVay.
It would be a weird combo.
It's different dynamics, right? Like McVay's going to run the offense. If you gave McVay Patrick Mahomes, McVay's still running this offense. Like, he doesn't give a shit who the it's his offense, and it should be. He's earned that right.
Yes.
His offenses are lethal. He has the right. And Aaron Rodgers, unless he's willing to just go out there and be the quarterback for McVay's offense, I just don't see that being a good marriage. I do think it stays Stafford. I think unless again, almost everyone is tradable. I think Stafford at his age with his contract is tradable, but I still think it would take. It's not one of those where you're going to see this really good person was traded for a 4th round pick.
Right.
That's not going to happen here. I think, if they get a good offer, they'll trade him. Like, everyone is tradable, especially this age, that contract. So I'm sticking with it's being Stafford. Rather confident on it. Rams typically just like to see their players' value. But also, you never know when you're going to get that offer where you're like, is this a real offer? Because I can't hit accept fast enough, right? Like, let's do this. So, Rams would be a good destination, right? That would be if I'm a quarterback and the Rams end up needing a quarterback.
Great coach.
I would take a few less dollars to go play there, right? Whether they have Cup or not, they're still going to have Puka. They're still going to have a good run game, and they have McVay. That'd be a great Sam Darnold pick. It'd just be like in Kevin O'Connell's offense, right? Just with McVay. So it would be a good destination, probably one of the better ones if Stafford does leave, but I think it stays Stafford for at least one more year.
And I think we're slowly starting to see what domino it's going to be. There's always one domino every offseason. I think the Stafford one is the domino because I do think if Stafford does leave, then I do think Aaron Rodgers is there. And they may draft a quarterback later on in the draft just to make sure because Rodgers isn't going to play much longer. Let's be real with it. But that is the domino that's kind of taking shape right now is, what's Stafford going to do? Is he going to stay? Is he going? So yeah, if Stafford leaves, I like Rodgers there. But that's all dependent on really all the quarterbacks are kind of dependent on what Stafford does because it's a huge domino. Whether you think about it, like no matter how you look at it, teams are starting to get you're starting to see a good chunk of the NFL find their quarterback. Right? It's shrunk each year, so it's getting smaller. But now you still have a handful of teams who are still
desperate.
Seven teams, and you can still throw New Orleans in there, even if they do decide to say Derek Carr. Are they going to trust Spencer Rattler? I mean, you got a new coach there now, so what's Kellen Moore going to want to do? He's probably just going to let Derek Carr just pretty much fuck you year, essentially, right? Like, hey, what is really going to hurt if we don't do very well?
Well, and we even talked with the Saints. They're a year or two away from even being able to do anything with that roster just because they're in salary cap hell.
Yeah.
So why not just write it out with that guy? In a year or two, get a young person once you're able to finally start moving forward with the rest of the roster. Because right now, I mean, that roster is that roster. So you don't want to bring a young quarterback into that.
Well, yeah, and they're already talking about 7 or 8 guys I've already seen who are probably going to be cut casualties just to get started. And they're still those are players who they're going to get signed right away in free agency because they're still really good quality players. So let's move on. Let's go with Minnesota. This one says Sam Darnold. I don't agree. It's tough. It really is. I have Darnold going somewhere else, though. But you draft McCarthy, give the dude a shot. If you can always bring Daniel Jones back as a backup, if maybe McCarthy, maybe he doesn't heal up right away or he needs a few extra weeks. Daniel Jones is more than capable of running that style of offense to get McCarthy healthy, and it's not going to cost you what Sam Darnold's about to cost you. So I don't like Sam Darnold here. I do like Sam Darnold here. I just think realistically, it's got to be something else.
Yeah, I do think I think it was on borderline on them actually wanting to bring Darnold back. We've seen it plenty of times. Or just because the dude was a first-round pick, if another quarterback makes an appearance and does something, it's the quarterback position. If you found one, you found one. Sorry, first-round pick, but I think the last couple games, Darnold played himself out of it to where McCarthy is going to get the nod. I think it's McCarthy, and I think he nailed it. McCarthy, Daniel Jones, I think that's going to be their quarterback room. It's a good position to be in with the coach, the weapon. I mean, we saw Sam Darnold, who's never really looked like an NFL quarterback, come out and most of the season look really good when you're throwing to Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson and have O'Connell running things. So I do think it's McCarthy. He shouldn't need any extra time, but you never know with setbacks or anything. But I definitely think they keep Daniel Jones as a very nice veteran backup at this point. That's kind of where Daniel Jones is at. I guess some people might think he could still go out there and be a starter somewhere, but I think at this point he's just that really probably going to be one of the better backup veteran quarterbacks to start rotating around teams now.
Yeah, and that's not to say he doesn't get that starting opportunity, right? But
yeah,
it's our show. We get to pick what we want, right?
Hell yeah.
So this we're still saying Daniel Jones would be a valuable backup option for Minnesota just in case McCarthy isn't, because again, it's going to cost you a whole hell of a lot less than what it would be to give Sam Darnold what he's more than likely going to get just based on that. So I think we're both in agreement on that one. Next team, Tennessee. This says Derek Carr. He's staying. I think he's going to stay in New Orleans. This is where I like Sam Darnold, though. They're going to have money. They have an offensive-minded coach. They're going to throw him. They're going to be the desperate team that'll throw the money at him, because I think that gives them an opportunity, basically, to use their wild card at number one, right? So you sign a veteran quarterback who's still young, right? He could easily still be a franchise quarterback. Use that number one overall pick for Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, whichever one you're leaning towards. I think you're leaning Abdul Carter, but we're still kind of up in the air on that. But it's still your quarterback, right? Like, Will Levis has already shown he can't do it. Mason Rudolph has already shown he can't do it. We're in a day and age where, yes, your coach is going into their second year, but we're in a day and age where if it's not now, you're gone. They'll replace you. That's just the way it is. So I wouldn't stake essentially my job, on a Will Levis or Mason Rudolph again, and or taking one of these quarterbacks number one overall. It could be Cam Ward. Cool. I think that would be a mistake. And I'm sure next year I'll sit here and probably, you never know, I fucked it up. But that's what I think they should do. Go get Sam Darnold. Your weapons are there. They're good enough. He's a good enough quarterback. Use the number one overall pick to draft your guy, and or just collect capital and start building your team the correct way. What do you think?
Yeah, this is actually where I think Sam Darnold will go to. Again, I think it's strictly because if you sign someone like Sam Darnold, who is, like you said, still young, he's going to get paid, but it's not going to be that franchise quarterback level of money. So it'll still be kind of cheaper in the long run. Then you can just do whatever you want with that first pick, right? If the team needs to trade up, you just stockpile draft picks this year, next year, to really help build out that roster that, truth be told, it's lacking a lot of top tier talent, right? Like Vrabel got the job done just because dudes wanted to show up and play for him, so you got that little bit extra out of guys. I like Sam Darnold there. I think they would then trade back if a team wants to trade up, get a couple extra first round picks this year, next year, build that roster out some, because I think outside of the two you named, Hunter and Abdul Carter, those are your two best prospects. But again, it's a deep draft. You can still get a lot of really good players if you get a lot of draft picks. So I think I like Sam Darnold fit in that system. He's young. I like what the Titans would be able to do then, really controlling, honestly, everyone's offseason at this point, right? Like,
oh yeah,
okay, now quarterback may or may not go number one, depending if they stay or trade. So I think the smart move would be Sam Darnold, because got to be honest, it's a very winnable division.
Yeah,
you don't need like a Josh Allen to come in and play quarterback to really make your way into the playoffs. You just get like steady quarterback play, honestly, and Sam Darnold can do that. So really just depends what Sam Darnold's market is, but I think that Darnold to the Titans is like the best overall fit from these teams and quarterbacks that are available.
Yeah, so let's go to Vegas. A few weeks ago, I said Russ just based on Pete Carroll being there, but I'm starting to hear more about Matt Stafford and Tom Brady linking up a little bit. Tom recruiting him. Stafford still kind of controls where he goes. If Vegas happens to be it, you never know. So my bold prediction would be if Vegas if it's Matt Stafford. If it's not, I think they may use their draft pick and they may get like a Shedeur Sanders. I think they're in that range of. I don't think Cam Ward will be there. I still think Cam Ward will probably be the first quarterback taken, but then I think Shedeur would be here. So I would say Stafford, even though I don't like you said earlier, it's just kind of the Rams what they typically will do. So it's going to have to blow them away, and he still technically does control his own destiny and where he goes with no trade clause. And I think Tom is kind of ramping up the recruiting efforts to try to get him there. But at the end of the day, the Rams kind of have to agree because they can still say, hey, we'll show you the money. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what he really wants. But, trying to think the AFC West, Pete and Stafford, Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, Andy, Patty, Bo, and Sean. Just get out of our division.
No, I agree. I actually, I think this is where Aaron Rodgers ends up. They have a defensive-minded coach, so Aaron Rodgers can come in and kind of just do his thing offensively, which is going to be very appealing to him. They have some weapons there, and I think the Raiders are just desperate enough to just try to be competitive again. That they're willing to put up with Rodgers for another year or two to kind of bridge the gap from, I think they'd be a team that would take a second or third round quarterback, especially with recently, now whether he means it or not, but recently Rodgers saying he would be okay mentoring. As long as he just mentors him like with football stuff, not all the extracurricular shit. Because let's be honest, like
shroom.
Yeah, like let's be honest, if we're just talking football stuff, Aaron Rodgers is still one of the best throwers of the football to ever play the game.
So pretty.
Plain and simple. Love him or hate him, dude can still spin a football. So if he's actually willing to do that, I think him there makes way too much sense. Just the weapons. I think Pete's fine. Pete's just going to let me run this defense because they do have some defensive pieces. Rodgers, you do what you want offensively. You got Bowers, you got Myers. We'll go trade for all your Packer ones like you always want. And I think they'd be okay because I think just getting Rodgers alone turns them into a minimum 6-7 win team. Just minimum. Again, because it's a hard division is why I'm not going, like, if we're saying the Raiders were in, the Titans division, that'd probably be like a 10 or 11 win team. So I think they're willing to do a year or two, get that second or third round quarterback, have Rodgers mentor him for reals. Think about it. If you're a young quarterback and you go to the Raiders and this happens, you have Rodgers and Brady as resources, right? Like, shit's setting up pretty decent there. But I like Rodgers a lot to the Raiders, which is still what you said would be crazy, Pete and Rodgers, Sean and Bo, like it'd still be a stacked division of quarterback and coaches. So I think there's not many teams I think that are willing or will be willing to kind of offer Rodgers anything or be willing to, just given his recent history of just antics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think Raiders are on that short list just because they want to be competitive again, first and foremost. They can figure out the future in the future, but for the next year or two, that would bring them up a little bit.
Yeah, no, it would be weird seeing him with Pete. Pete's, such a happy-go, always energized for his age. And then there's Aaron Rodgers, who's just the, chill, relax, kind of guy. So it'll be interesting. You kind of saw Saleh kind of get hyped, and Aaron Rodgers was just kind of like, oh, chill the fuck out. So that'll be an interesting pairing. So let's go to Cleveland, that shit show. I think this is a Kirk Cousins spot, and here's why. You can't spend money. You can afford giving Kirk Cousins a minimum and making Atlanta pay the full price. Stefanski was his OC, I believe, in Minnesota, so he's familiar. There's familiarity with the offense. He would be a step up, obviously, from what they've had. We've seen Jameis, who is just fine in that offense. He's just, again, he throws too many interceptions. Whereas I think Kirk Cousins would fit in with this one just fine. It gets him back to what he's used to doing. It gets him away from the outside zones. It gets him back into what he was comfortable with. Some of his better years, obviously, were with Minnesota. He's going to have the weapons there, Njoku, Jerry Jeudy. If they keep Nick Chubb, he'll have a running game. And then obviously you got to try to do something to keep Myles Garrett happy. They keep saying they're pretty confident and comfortable with selling everyone. We're not trading them. We'll see. I think they're not bluffing. I think they truly mean it. But at the end of the day, we're in a day and age where if Myles isn't getting what he wants, players have no problem sitting. I think he's too much of a competitor to do that. I don't think he would be that kind of guy. But again, you never know. So only because they have to be the cheapest team as far as spending money, I think this is why they would get Kirk Cousins if he were to be released.
Yeah, so you said this is our show and we can say whatever we want, right?
Yeah.
So my choice for their quarterback, hear me out, it's going to be Cam Ward, but it's not going to be how you think. I think they're going to trade Myles Garrett to the Titans for the first overall pick and obviously a couple more picks. Since Titans got Sam Darnold, now they'll walk away with basically Myles Garrett for their first overall pick.
Oh, shit.
And then that's where the Browns take Cam Ward. Because I agree with you, right? Like the GM, you're not going to trade Myles Garrett. But let's be honest, in today's sports, the players hold their cards. And if Myles legitimately behind doors is like, I want to be traded. Like, I understand you want to keep me. You've had plenty of years to try to put a winner out here for me, and you're trading me. Okay, I'm not taking anything less than the first overall pick this year.
Yeah.
And luckily, with the Titans signing Sam Darnold on our list, they can afford to do that. So, because I think Myles Garrett, barring them going out and getting like Matt Stafford or a legitimate quarterback that might kind of sway Myles Garrett's feelings, I do think he's going to end up being traded, and it's obviously going to be before the draft, so you can get shit this year. So I think they end up with Cam Ward. If that crazy, unlikely scenario doesn't happen, I agree with it being Kirk Cousins, strictly for the reasons you gave. Like, just from a financial standpoint, there's nothing else you really can do. You're not going to be competitive enough to get Sam Darnold and Sam Darnold might not even want to go back to the New York Jets 2.0 type deal. Like,
shit, yeah.
Why would he do that, right? So, Kirk Cousins financially, there might be some veterans out there that if they have to miss on Kirk, just because we don't know if Kirk will be released or not, right? So, there's gonna be like Jimmy G's out there in the world, like Daniel Jones will still be out there. Like, if Daniel Jones wants to be a starter, he might have to suck it up and hope he can do something with the Browns, right? So, yeah, they can't make a splash at the quarterback position outside of the draft, outside of Kirk Cousins if he's released. So, yeah, just the Browns being the Browns, right?
That's
a few
all
years ago.
Yeah.
A few years ago, we were like, damn, they get the quarterback in Deshaun, and here they are. Everyone started questioning it the moment they gave him a fully guaranteed contract, and well, what do you know? Everyone outside of that front office was correct. Like, what y'all doing? So, they don't have much flexibility. As much as you don't want to give up a pass rusher, if you think if Cam Ward can be your franchise quarterback, I think an elite pass rusher is worth that cost. I love Myles Garrett. I wouldn't trade Patrick Mahomes for him, obviously, but if I had to give up a pass rusher for my favorite team to get a franchise quarterback, it's a no-brainer. I'm sorry. Like, I'm a defensive guy, but your success begins and ends at quarterback. Not saying everyone has to have Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, but you have to have a good enough one. So,
especially with them playing in that division with Pittsburgh,
yeah,
Cincy's going to be better. Baltimore,
the Ravens,
Baltimore. So
yeah.
it's like, yeah, you're kind of the joke of the division, but you really don't have that bad of a roster. Like, let's be completely honest here. It's literally your quarterback position that you can't get right.
Yep.
So from one AFC North team to another, Pittsburgh, they got, I don't know if it's all happy-go-lucky up there in Pittsburgh. I know a lot of people were saying Justin Fields, but now the ownership was kind of like, hey, we'd love to have Russ back. And Mike Tomlin was kind of like, no. So, again, we said earlier, there's coaches who, this is it. Like, you have to get these right. And I know we love Mike Tomlin. We'll never have any Mike Tomlin hate on this show because we are huge. Mike Tomlin's really good coach. With that being said, Mike Tomlin's a really good regular season coach. It's been a while for a postseason win. Ownership's starting to. I mean, you're hearing more in off seasons now with Pittsburgh than you ever have. They're always a close, private group. You don't ever hear many leaks, stuff getting leaked. We're only almost 3 weeks into the since Super Bowl ended, and I've already heard more this offseason from a Pittsburgh group than we've ever heard. So is it Russ's people doing their part? Is it Justin Fields' people? Or is it who? But at the end of the day, like Tomlin, you got to get this right. He looked like a genius when he made the move last year, even though we were even questioning that move. Obviously, Russ kind of pootered out there towards the end of the season. But I still think Justin Fields gives them the best chance. And I actually don't know if Arthur Smith kind of gives them the brand of football that they truly were looking for or what they were maybe thinking they were going to get. So again, I still think Fields has got to be the guy here. I don't know if you're really technically in a position to get one in the draft. Maybe go Fields for maybe a 2, maybe another 1 year, and maybe find a Jackson Dart later on in the draft. I don't know. But give me Justin Fields here.
Yeah, I think if the Steelers don't sign Justin Fields, then it's the wrong choice.
I mean, you can look at maybe Daniel Jones.
No, I mean, they were gifted Justin Fields. I didn't agree when they switched to Russ, and no matter the kind of success they had, right when Russ first took over, I still think it was the wrong move. Justin Fields and that team was just cooking. You don't usually do a quarterback change when you're winning. It's kind of what I said earlier. Like, if you find a quarterback, stick with him, right? Like, yeah, Russ is the veteran. You brought him in thinking he was the starter, but shit, he got hurt. Someone else had to fill in, and it was Justin Fields, and he did fine. Even if the wins were quote unquote ugly, the main thing is you were winning, and his numbers weren't bad.
Only had a 400-yard game.
Yeah, so I mean, they were just handed Justin Fields on a platter. Just kind of a dump from the Bears. If they don't find a way to just keep this young quarterback in how I would be baffled. Steelers are a very proud, a very well-ran organization. I'm surprised, kind of what you said, because they do keep things kind of in-house. They also make quick decisions, shut people up, move on with their business. I'm surprised that it already hadn't been leaked that they have an extension in place for Fields. Just to shut everyone up, keep things in-house. Like, this is what it is. Move on with your life. Because if Justin Fields, if he ends up somewhere else, that's a dude who, I don't know. He was on the Bears when, I don't know. We mentioned plenty of times the Bears were just not very well ran, not a good staff, nothing. Fields is going to make someone happy, and if it's not Pittsburgh, then their whole offseason is just an L, honestly. You were gifted him, right? I still believe in Justin Fields. I always thought he was good. I always thought he got a bad rap in Chicago. Rough situation. Came out and balled in Pittsburgh, and we were like, hell yeah, we were right. Just bad situation, and then he got benched. So if it's not Fields, yeah, that'd be a big loss for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and again, maybe he wasn't throwing the football the way they thought he was going to throw it. But again, it's okay that he scrambles. That's kind of on the coaches to get him, more prepared and ready. But yeah, I don't know if there was another option that maybe Daniel Jones, but I'm not sure that would make the Steeler Nation, the Yinzers, all that thrilled if it were Daniel Jones. Talk about a team, Ben Roethlisberger for so long, and ever since Big Ben, I mean, it's kind of just been one shit show after another. They struck out on Kenny Pickett, didn't get that one right. I mean, now you're kind of back to the drawing boards. Mason Rudolph wasn't it. They've tried everything, so now, I mean, you kind of have to do it. And I don't see them being a team that's going to make a huge splash as like a trade. would they go get like a Kyler Murray, see if Arizona was willing to do a Kyler Murray trade, or is there other names out there that maybe they would do? I don't know, but they got to get it right, or weirdly enough, Mike Tomlin it could be it for him. So that'll wrap it up for the QB carousel. Again, those are our predictions. Those are kind of, what we think may happen. And obviously, Boston making a huge, bold prediction of a trade. We can do that because it's our show. So if he wants to make Myles Garrett to Tennessee for 5 first-round picks or 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, 4 third-round picks, and 7 seventh-round picks, that's what he can do. I mean, in the end of it, you kind of get the gist of what is it a possibility? It could be. You never know. We've seen stupider and crazier shit happen, right? So let's move on real quick. We won't get too in depth with a lot of free agency stuff, just because we are 2 weeks away, so we'll get a little more balls here on our claims with free agency as we get closer to it. Right now, it's more of combine started, so that means you're going to start seeing extensions for current players on current teams. You saw Shakir get his 4-year deal with the Bills. Now the salary cap's going up. Huge news for the Chiefs. Brett Veach saying with the salary cap going up, they may be able to, and I think probably the biggest move that they're going to need to make this offseason, and that's re-signing Trey Smith. Am I wrong in thinking that Trey Smith may be the biggest, maybe, priority for your guys' offseason?
Yeah, there's a love-hate with that one. Because I think just from all the rumors right now, nobody actually knows the numbers that are thrown out between the two camps. Two camps being Chiefs and Trey Smith's agents and whatnot. But everything you're reading is he's resetting the guard market. I'm a big Trey Smith fan. I think he's a quality ass lineman. Do I think he's worth the highest paid interior lineman contract and resetting the market? I don't. But again, after what everyone witnessed in the Super Bowl, a little bit of overreacting and making sure your offensive line's solid won't be a bad thing. We saw it after the Chiefs lost to the Bucs. They went out and revamped everything, spent draft capital, spent money, and it worked out. So I think, me personally, I think I'd hate to see him be the highest paid lineman or interior guard. I think at this point, Veach and that just whole organization has earned the trust in me. If he thinks it's important enough and worth it, then I'm just going to believe him and think that he has plans to still make the rest of the roster better. He's obviously the Chiefs' best free agent, so I think it is accurate to say he would be the most important to try to keep for sure. Just to answer your question, he's our best one, so yeah, let's prioritize it.
So last offseason, Denver gave Quinn Miners a 4-year, $80 million. I think if you're looking Trey Smith, he's probably looking more 5, and you're looking he could be 5 for 95 to maybe even 100. If he did say the 4, I bet it would be probably 4 for around 90 or 4 for 95-ish, somewhere in there. Because Quinn Miners is a really good guard, right? But it's Trey Smith. He's reliable. He's kind of a huge staple. Him and Creed Humphrey, and then even getting Joe Tooney back into his correct position. There's not a better 1, 2, 3 right there in your interior. So I think it is kind of important. So if it were a 4-year, it would have to be around 95. And I think 5, you're going over 100 and that guarantee money is going to be And I don't know. It's tricky, right? Because he's been a day one. It's one of those where it's man, do you trust a Caliendo to go slide over there? Do you trust a Kingsley to move over to guard? Or do you just say, fuck it, let's pay who we want. Let's get the guy in here, and then let's continue to do what we've done well, and that's draft. So what do you think, 4 or 5?
I think it'll be 5 for for the 100 to 110. Obviously, as a fan and whatnot, I hope he gives a little bit of just a discount for, staying on a team that's going to be really good for at least the foreseeable future still. So maybe he gives us like a 5 for that 95 to just make it easier to get and keep talent around him. But it's going to be up there, like you said, 90 mil plus, no matter how many years. And like, I know the Chiefs looked awful in the Super Bowl, but there's still not as many holes as people think. Like, we don't need a big time receiver. Rice and Worthy will be just fine as our 1-2. Obviously, you want to build depth, but you're going to have Juju and Watson. I think the only legitimate holes that are going to need to be filled, left tackle and corner. Even if Reed leaves, we've drafted so many safeties recently that we're still young and deep at safety. I would like to keep Reed. I'm a Reed fan. I like what he brings to the table. I think he's really good in the back end, but you can't keep everyone. So I would understand paying Trey Smith because I think Veach has looked at the roster and realized that, like, there's not as many holes as everyone's freaking out about, right? Like, yes, the offensive line looked bad, but to what you said, if we have Tooney back in the spot he's supposed to, keep Trey Smith, we really only have one offensive line position you need to solidify. Corner is obviously a huge need. Some of these things can be addressed in the draft, so if you don't have to go make moves in free agency just because the fans like it, right? If you can keep your own and get through the draft.
Chiefs aren't that. They aren't going to make stupid moves like that.
No, so they're going to keep who they want to keep, build through the draft, and then they'll go out and get those, the Juju Smith-Schusters and the cheap players to fill in good depth pieces to build through the draft. Chiefs will be fine. I think kind of the question mark hole that may or may not appear is linebacker. If we're able to keep Bolton, I don't think it needs to be addressed. Again, even without Bolton, you're still going to have Chanel. You're still going to have Tranquil. You can this draft is loaded with linebackers.
There's other linebackers, absolutely.
Yeah, and they can even go find another Drew Tranquil, right? Kind of a veteran out there that was kind of a cast off. Get a steal on it. So there's not as many holes, so I'm not against Chiefs finding ways to keep their own, filling in. Hell, DJ Humphries with the full off-season workout, staying healthy, could be a cheap left tackle option. That dude was really good before his injury. Did we try to rush him back? Maybe. Maybe that's why he got re-hurt. Who knows? But I think I'm going to go to what I said earlier, and I think Brett Veach and his team have earned the right for us to just trust him. As ugly as the Super Bowl was, I remember the one against the Bucks. They went out, fixed shit, and we obviously went on a nice little streak. So, if I don't want to say I'll be sad if I see Trey Smith reset the market. Maybe not what I would do, but I would be okay with it just because I trust the plan that they'll have in place.
Yeah, and like I said, I think at the end of the day, there's just certain guys that you got to keep, and I think the big uglies up front, even your D-line. I'm not sitting here saying he's Chris Jones and get Chris Jones but I mean, at the end of the day, he's kind of looking at Chris Jones style contract just based on the annual value of that. I was going to talk about the Broncos Joker spot, but I think we can push that. I do want to talk about, well, first, let me talk to the Broncos people who do listen to our show. Quit thinking every person who's on the trade block and is on the cut and who's on the Saints that's going to be, quit thinking they're coming to Denver. You guys are getting fucking ridiculous.
Well, Taysom Hill is a Bronco. We can chalk that one up.
He maybe, but literally Cooper Kupp, all these other guys, Deebo Samuel, I saw T. Higgins, and there's been some other defensive players too. Like, let's be realistic. I get it. Let's calm down a little bit.
Welcome to the Chiefs world, right? I've already seen posts where we're favorites to get T. Higgins, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, and I'm like, guys, this isn't Madden. We can't just load up with whoever the hell you want.
Exactly. And if you guys, come on, I know the Joker position is pretty important to Sean Payton, and I am excited to kind of give my thoughts on that. But that's for another one. I do want to talk about someone who's kind of important to this offense as well. You talked about Trey Smith for the Chiefs, Courtland Sutton for the Broncos. He's entering his last year of a 4-year kind of contract. It was a 4-year, $60 million, and this year he's set to make 13.5 in base. I don't think it needs to be another 4 for 60, but I do like the idea of maybe like a 3. You got to keep him. He's way too important for the development of Bo. I think we saw that last year. And I know you heard me bitch plenty during the season about his drops. I can get over some of those because I know he's a better receiver than what he showed at some of those games, and I think he'll be just fine in the long run. Marvin Mims isn't a number one. Troy Franklin's not a number one. I saw some people say Luther Burden. I'm not bringing in Luther Burden to be a number one right away. Not when there's a guy who's already on your roster that's established. I think he's willing to give you a discount. I think he's willing to stay because I truly believe him when he says he loved playing with Bo and he loves playing for Sean Payton. I think we're to that point where some guys are going to give you hometown discounts. And I think he's one. Now, you can't make it as like don't give him a low ball offer to make it disrespectful because, I mean, he's still an athlete at the end of the day and they still want to get their money, right? So you still got to make it worth his while. So I like the 3-year, maybe 40 mil, somewhere in there. It doesn't need to be a Shakir deal that he just signed, though I think it may end up kind of looking similar to that. So at the end of the day, Sutton's got to be a kind of a priority because that's super important for Bo Nix's development, even though Taysom Hill's on his way. But at the end of the day, we got to make this work.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Especially if you're able to get him cheaper than what you'd be able to get like a T. Higgins for, right? And
that's all it is. Don't break the bank for that.
Yeah, and I was a big T. Higgins fan before people even knew who T. Higgins was.
That's true.
I mean, you know that everyone else doesn't, but I've always been a big T. Higgins guy, even before he blew up. But at the end of the day, paying him like 80 mil or pay Cortland Sutton that like 40 to 60 range, I even think the deal Shakira got for Sutton would be a great deal.
Absolutely.
Like 4 for 60, I think that'd be a great deal. So it's like one of those, do you keep who you have in-house, who loves being there, who's already played with your young quarterback, cheaper than going and getting a T? I don't think the difference as from a receiver standpoint between T. Higgins and Cortland Sutton is really that different. You can also say Cortland Sutton might even be more valuable than T. Higgins, just given how many games he'll play each year. And again, that's me coming from, I'm a huge T. Higgins fan, but at the end of the day, like, there's not much different between those two, if any, from a receiver standpoint. So if you can keep one in-house cheaper, yeah, I think you absolutely prioritize that.
Yeah, and even if Denver doesn't offer T. Higgins what they think, there is a team out there who's going to. Right, there is going to be a team out there that's going to lay it all out there for him. I think the Panthers could end up being a team that's doing that to help Bryce Young. There's plenty of teams out there that will give him what he wants, and I think Denver and Kansas City are kind of in that area of, yes, they know kind of how to spend their money. I know Sean Payton wasn't the greatest in New Orleans doing it. It's a little different with our ownership group now, who've kind of taken a little more control over the financial situations like that. Yes, Sean Payton can make the decisions, but at the end of the day, the ownership group's still like, hey, let's make these reasonable.
And Sean Payton's smart enough to where, and like Denver's a great organization too. I hate them, obviously, but it is what it is still. And Sean Payton's smart enough he knows what happened in New Orleans. They're still suffering from it. And he sees it. And I guarantee Denver sees it. And, they're like, hey, we're not going to let it get to that. And Sean Payton's like, okay, good. Like, yeah, I see what's happening there. Let's find a happy medium for sure. So, yeah, I have no doubt. Denver's not a team that's stupid. Let's be honest. We could go back the last 5 to 10 years and be like, really, outside of Randy Gregory, has there been something stupid that they've done?
Right. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're not going to try to make one splashy move and maybe have to overpay for somebody, but every team usually does, right? I don't know what it is, but I can promise you once free agency starts and probably, let's say we're getting into training camp, I'm going to be talking about maybe a move where Denver had to overpay for somebody, but at the end of the day, could it be a Zach Bond that they maybe overpaid for? Could it be a Nick Bolton? I don't know, but it's going to be somebody.
It's going to be Javon Holland that they overpay for, and that's a position that you need to solidify. So I don't even think it'll be really an overpay. Just because the safety market is kind of going up a little bit, especially with some of these young ones coming up. But Sean Payton's not going to overpay for a receiver.
No.
In his history, he's never done that.
No, and that's why
he's not going to overpay for a running back.
That's why I encourage Bronco fans to look at Sean Payton's history. He's doing exactly the roster how he had it constructed. You see where the pieces are coming or that are missing, but you kind of have an idea of what's coming, right? Cortland Sutton, Michael Thomas. We obviously don't have the running back situation kind of figured out quite yet. That's why he's going to go get it. The tight end, that's the Joker, tight end, running back, one of those two positions. So you're starting to see at the D-line, he paid all the offensive linemen, except for the center who's still on a rookie contract. All those guys are taken care of. What was he paying in New Orleans? Offensive line, defensive line. Paid defensive linemen now. So come on, just be smart. I get it. It's not, and I'm not telling you how to fan, right? Like, be a fan, be cool, but my goodness, like, not everybody's going to be a Bronco. Not everybody's going to be a Chief. And that's okay. Be excited about it, but come on, let's be realistic about it too. That's going to wrap it up. First off, good start for the Cubs and Royals, right? In spring training. Royals did lose today to the Rockies, but I didn't see who they threw out there, so that's kind of disgusting and gross. Hopefully it wasn't anybody good and it was kind of some backups. But hot start for the Royals. All of our guys are looking good. Same thing for the Cubs. Started off spring training whooping the Dodgers' ass. Always a plus. Getting ready. You're 2-3 weeks away from Tokyo Series.
Yep.
We're getting lit up. All right. We're working on some other schedule adjustments with some guests. Right now, we're kind of playing musical schedules just based on where everyone's located. Again, we're going to make it work. If we have to do a certain night, we'll switch our show around. We'll always do our show on Wednesday, and if we have to pop in and do an extra episode, we'll do that. But for now, we're still working on it. So find this episode on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, and we will talk to you guys soon. See you guys next week.